Hi, everyone. I'm Gary Berman. Welcome to the Cyber Hero Adventures Show. How cool is that introduction, and how disappointed are you just to see me sort of sitting here? But don't worry, I have something I'm going to show you towards the end of the show that answers the question, why would a 64-year-old man dress up in a superhero costume, and what would cause him to go to get his superpower from 53 cybersecurity conferences over a couple of years, and whose wife thinks he's batty, and that's a nice way of saying it. But I have really, really good news here, because you're not really relying only on me. We have some incredible thought leaders with us today, including Evgeny Karam. Hey, Evgeny, how you doing?
Hello, Gary. How are you? It's nice to be here again.
It's so nice to have you as well. Are you a glutton for punishment or something? Like, why have you come back to our show?
No, it's a privilege to be here. What are you saying? Come on, it's fun.
Good. Okay. Well, speaking of fun, there's not a more fun guy than this, Scott Schober. Hey, Scott, how you doing?
Doing good, doing good. Good to see you, Gary. Good to see you, Evgenys.
Thanks, Scott. And I'm going to ask you the same question. Why did you come back?
Glutton for punishment.
Fair enough. Well, speaking of gluttons for punishment, I mean, look at the topic that we're here to address today. Ransomware. I mean, like where do you start with something like that except with this graphic? Is that picture's worth 1,000 words? I mean, this stuff hurts, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Definitely. And unfortunately, it looks like it's going to continue to hurt. This is what the people are saying.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a rapid responder show. You know, we didn't really have time to go through our normal sort of production process. I have a producer now, by the way. Yay! But this is one of those things that's incredibly important because, you know, as our audience, I'm sure, is well aware, the dark side, the ransomware attack on the Colonial pipeline was, according to many folks, and I'm going to chat with you about this in a moment, kind of a game changer, because it actually affected kind of, you know, ordinary Americans in their pocketbooks and at the gas pumps. I mean, is this a game changer, you know, according to you guys?
Yeah, I certainly think so, because, I mean, obviously we've had lots of ransomware cases over the last few years targeting different sectors. This one in particular, the fact that it's targeting critical infrastructure, I think that's really key.
Yeah, exactly. And it affects you in your pocketbook. What do you think, Evgeny? You think the Colonial pipeline tech, and then also the I'll get these initials wrong, JBS, was it? The meat packing company? I mean, you know, you don't mess with Americans' meat.
I think it was definitely a game changer because it was an eye-opening. A lot of people heard about what happened for the last 6, 8, 9 months. When the people that are not in the industry feel it for themselves and now understand that potentially they cannot drive somewhere because there is no gas. Scott, I think there is something with your microphone.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is. I thought it was your end. I'm not sure.
Can you try to be on mute for a second?
I try and mute. Hold on.
Yeah, I'm hearing you fine. Anyways.
Yeah. So it is definitely something that people realize right now, is that something may change and it may affect other things. There was a discussion with a lot of people how many different municipalities there are in US. You know, there's different water, there's different gas, and there's a lot of decentralization on how they operate. And even so, in this particular case, the company itself decided to shut down the gas lines because their IT and actually their billing system went down. It doesn't mean it could not happen to somebody else.
That's a very astute insight, you know, because the way it's been portrayed thus far in the media is, you know, it was a cyber attack on industrial control systems. You know, a lot of people at least take that away from it, but that's not really what it was, right, Scott?
No, I think it's certainly a bigger picture. And I think that the part that caught my attention and caught a lot of other people's attention was how quick and how much was paid, the ransom, again, in Bitcoins. But then more importantly, the recent updates is how some of that money was recovered. I don't recall hearing that amount of money being recovered in any of the ransomware attacks, which is pretty amazing.
I did some homework with some law enforcement friends, and it's true. It has not been announced in that way. And so according to Lisa Monaco, here's a quote from her yesterday. She is the U.S. Deputy Attorney General. She said, "We will spare no efforts." And this is the first kind of recovery outcome, according to or attributed now to this joint task force, since there was an announcement between the Department of Justice and everybody to kind of work together. I'm wondering, why would it take so long to get this kind of synergy to treat what is clearly terrorist activity? I mean, if someone, God forbid, put a bomb or something on a pipeline, or did something to a meat factory, or fill in the blank, a healthcare system, I mean, that's terrorism to me.
Well, I think it's important to remember too, this comes on the heels of two other major attacks. You got the SolarWinds hack, which is really, again, Russian-based hack there that really stands out and caused devastating problems. And then shortly thereafter, you had the Microsoft Exchange compromise, which was really perpetrated by the Chinese hackers. So what's happening is you've got all these different countries from the outside.
Yeah, exactly. And they have different motivations. Nation states seemingly are interested in espionage, or, causing difficulty in our societal discourse, and just, raising havoc. And then you have criminals who are primarily, in it, for the money. And these are not, typically just some guy in a hoodie. I mean, although, that is true. It's a bit of an outdated archetype, right, Evgeny? Is that true? I mean, are these criminal gangs?
From what we know, it's a well-oiled machine. These people have human resources, benefits, a lot of goodies. They basically come to work every day, have an office, have a chair, do their work, get the payment, get the benefits. So it's just a different way for people to make money. And it's, in a way, easy way for them to make money. There's a lot of stories about negotiation, about, oh, sorry, we didn't want to attack you, we're going to attack somebody else. So it's a bit scary for the global population about what may happen.
Yeah, it's interesting. We do have some breaking news. The FBI announces the partial recovery of the $2.2 million paid by Colonial Pipeline to the dark side ransomware gang. I think the original amount was around $4.4 million or so. Is that the case?
It is the case, and it was interesting because from what we know, even if they paid and they got the way to recover the information, it was still too slow. So they end up using the backup systems for the recovery, and not the keys for the ransomware.
Really, I did not know that. Oh, interesting. And so for our audience, let's take a moment to dimensionalize the size of the problem a little bit. So what was said in the FBI report yesterday is there are over 100 ransomware variants. And isn't it kind of timely and really almost unfortunate that we use the same words to describe cybersecurity as we are in the COVID crisis? Variants, basic cyber hygiene, virus. I mean, what is that all about?
I think we do certainly see a parallel there, which is kind of scary, especially when you think of the words like pandemic, where it's affecting the globe. And in this same case, these cyber ransomware events are now starting to become global in nature. And to me, that's scary, because the importance of sharing information, not just, a lot of times we tend to think just in the United States, but certainly if this is a global problem, it extends the boundaries outside there, and sharing between government agencies and sharing between private companies, that really effectively allows the perpetrators to be caught. How else are you going to hunt down and track these guys? And I think what they're doing effectively, DOJ and the FBI, and I have to commend them, they're really starting to carefully analyze the blockchain so they can actually hunt down and find the source of the money, and follow the money is really what they're doing. And that's kind of an old method that law enforcement's always used. If they follow the money, they catch the bad guys, and that's what they're doing here.
And to our audience, this was not planned. So this is one of our previous comics. What's the title? Let's say it out loud.
Follow the money.
Go
Great
to
minds think alike.
go to cyberheroescomics.com and you can read it. We've had several thousand people read these shows. So to further dimensionalize the money aspect for a minute, one of the things I learned from one of our other great thought leaders is that the average ransomware payment is about $350,000. I mean, that's a chunk of change.
Yeah, and I think it's changed a lot. If you go back a couple years ago and you looked at some of the initial payouts, they were probably hovering around $500. And again, where were the victims there? Those victims were anybody, because it was mass emails that went out, and they were hoping somebody would click on the link there, that would then download that particular strain of malware, that being ransomware, gets on their computer and infected, and then they'd have to pay upwards of $500, the equivalent in Bitcoin. Of course, with the supply and demand, this fictitious supply demand to some degree has driven the cost of Bitcoin way up, way down, and it's a roller coaster. That adds another crazy variable in this. So when you were getting ransomware in the past, the equivalent in Bitcoin, that $500, it's probably worth a lot more a couple of years later if they so held on to it and didn't cash in. But the cyber criminals are really using Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, in a sense, like a money laundering operation, where they can get paid and they can make it a little bit more difficult to get caught.
Go ahead, Evgeny.
Yeah, Scott, you bring a very interesting point. If you do look back 5-6 years ago, there was a lot of attacks on the personal computers as well. As you mentioned, people click on the money, click on the link, and it could be gamers, for example. So let's say you play World of Warcraft, and you really have all your games and all your characters and all your information. They may connect and encrypt your gaming files or some other games. And because you already paid so much money for the character and for the game, you pay the money. And again, it's $500 versus something else. There were people that may be doing photography with encrypting their personal photos or the work they do. And right now, for the last 2 years, we really see a big shift. I don't really see a lot of personal people in the news. For ransomware, it's more about organizations and maybe small, medium companies and enterprises as well. And I'm afraid we'll see more and more SMBs that don't really have a good security measure, don't really have a good security program, that maybe will be victims of such attacks as well.
Yeah, I mean, as a victim of a small business, series of attacks, we had only in about 100 people, but, it shut us down. We lost everything, and I'm sure this happens a lot. And one of the interesting things that I think we've listened and learned from a lot of smart people about is that when someone is attacked, they're reluctant to talk about it. Sometimes they don't know, the depth of it. They don't know the dwell time, how long that criminals might have been in their system, and sometimes they're afraid to talk to law enforcement because of reputational risk, negative impact on their brands. Help us understand that, and what's it going to take to really get this collaboration in the same way that criminals do?
I think one part I really want everybody to understand, at least from my perspective, doesn't matter what happened and what kind of security systems you have. You need to pay attention on backup of your systems, and of course, not using the same username and passwords for the backups. I really hope it's not new. People always needed to do it for availability. But right now, it's even more important to have good backups, up-to-date backups, check the backups, and make sure the usernames you're using for the backups are not the same one that you do use day by day in case they hack, you don't want to be deleted. So this is at least one. And there's, of course, many, many, many other things people need to do to make sure they're more protected. But at least have the separation of duties, have the backups, and use different passwords to access the information is, in my mind, are the basic steps need to be done.
Indeed. And, one of the interesting things that I've learned through this kind of improbable journey into this digital universe is a little bit about the dark web and what criminals do and how they behave and how do they monetize this stuff. And so through the courtesy of our friend Bob Schiff over at Cyberlytica, we're going to go a little bit into the dark web for some of our audience who may not have had the opportunity to look into it or not. But the first thing to point out here is very clever. Let's take a Tor. That's spelled TOR, which of course stands for the Onion router, which is an anonymous way to access a lot of these chat rooms and stuff. So let's take a look, into this and see a little bit about who created the dark web. Scott, you want to opine on that?
Yeah, sure. It's kind of ironic. It was not put together by a bunch of criminals or anything like that, although a lot of criminals and cyber criminals utilize the dark web so they can stay anonymous. But it was really the U.S. government, I guess, a division from the Navy that actually created it. And it really allowed for anonymous communication for dissidents and media and different persons to communicate around the globe. And the way that it works is it really kind of bounces traffic, if you envision it that way. And it is encrypted, and therefore it cannot easily be traced. It doesn't mean it can't be, but it can't easily be traced. So in other words, if I'm here in New Jersey typing on my computer and I was a bad guy, my data, the transmission may be bounced over to Turkey, and then it's bounced over to Texas, and then bounced to India. So anybody trying to find my location, they couldn't easily do that and find the exact proximity because the traffic is bouncing all around. Plus, it's encrypted. There's some downsides to all that, the way it's routed and the encryption. It does add some latency and some delay. So it's not as fast and easy to use as our traditional web that we're all used to, the surface web, where we're going to do a Google search or something like that. So there's some trade-offs there. Plus, it's not indexed. If you do a search on Google, everything's indexed and you could easily find the information. The dark web, it's not. You really need to enter a specific URL to get to the web page where they have a store or chat room and things like that. And there you have a nice picture of it, kind of breaking it down, showing the surface web, the deep web, and then that sub-layer, the smallest part there, the dark web, that has repositories of information, a lot of it being used by cyber criminals.
I mean, I when I first saw this, it just blew my mind. I mean, 4% of the content on the entire World Wide Web is indexed, meaning 96% isn't. I mean, that's just nuts.
It really helps you see how much is, in a sense, below the sea that we're not privy to or used to. And yet, if you narrow it down to the slice to the actual dark web, it's a narrow subset of that even. And I don't know how many pages, but tens of thousands of pages, maybe dedicated pages to do a lot of things that are not that legal, let's just say.
For real, what you're seeing on your sleeve, on your side here, is drugs. This was a big victory for the FBI. They took it down a while ago, called Silk Road, which for the longest time was the largest sort of underground marketplace. You can buy all kinds of guns and ammunition and rocket launchers and stuff like that. You can hire a hitman. This is real. What you're looking at here from Albania. Go ahead, Evgeny. You want to say something? Oh wait, I think you're muted.
I am muted. Sorry about this. Sorry. It's all true stories, and the story of Silk Road is quite interesting. If nobody read it, just go on Google, put Silk Road. It was probably around 8 years ago started. But how it's unveiled, what happened, how FBI was able to find it. There was a hitman involved there as well. There was a regular guy that everybody was thinking just a programmer doing all the work from Starbucks. So the history and the story about this particular website is quite interesting, and I would like to recommend to anyone to go and read about it just for their own story before they're going to bed and have something interesting to know.
Yeah, and I think the interesting part was back about 8 years ago, when the claimed founder, Russ Albright, was actually arrested and imprisoned. Then next thing that happened is Silk Road 2 kind of popped up. So it never really goes away. It's not like it's a single group that is selling on the dark web. You arrest them and they're gone. There's many, many, many different online stores where you can buy, and not just drugs and guns and hitmen, but a lot of it is focused on the stolen credentials, passwords, social security.
Malware, ransomware. all these tools
ransomware.
right now.
Yeah. We're gonna focus on that in just a second for sure. You can even get to different products. There's something akin to Yelp, a rating system for all these criminal things. On the scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate, the delivery of your cocaine or whatever? I mean, it's really just nuts, and I don't think many people are very aware of this. And here's ransomware as a service. Evgeny, that first box, that's what that is. Why don't you share with our audience how that works?
So ransomware as a service is basically you buy a service and you say, I need to hack someone, or I need to find a particular information, or I have a target in mind, and you ask their services, same as a delivery, or same as you want to buy something, and they find the information for you, they hack somebody for you and provided the information. A lot of people say that the dark side that was used for the Colonial hack, this was actually what they were doing. They were malware as a service and ransomware as a service.
And let me ask you something about Hershevek. In your role, you're a senior person over there. How do you advise your clients and just approach the defensive posture, to keep your everyone safe?
So we have different customers. The customers we, of course, do managed services. We give them guidelines on what we do, what is our responsibility, what is their responsibility. Because a lot of people think the moment they pay for managed services, it means the managed service provider is now responsible on everything. It's not the case. We need to define roles and responsibilities. And also many customers, unfortunately, don't have all the at least basic and required tools to help themselves. And if they paid someone, it means they're not magically going to have the tools like EDR, EPP for endpoint protection response, firewalls, and many, many, many other things that they will need to have basic protection. For the not managed customers, personally, part of my team, we do workshops where we guide them and we understand exactly the cybersecurity program. We go on the different cybersecurity domains. We talk about different protections, different security controls, email, web, endpoint, or backups, or risk, compliance, metrics. How do they know they're secure? How they can improve their security? So there's quite a lot of different things that can be done. I always tell people that cybersecurity, it's like a 3D puzzle. When you put all the pieces together, you have a cybersecurity program, but one piece by itself will not able to do everything. And there's quite a lot of pieces there.
It's really interesting you said that, like pieces of the puzzle too, because, one of the things that you alluded to a little bit earlier is access to, chat forums and things like that. Is this something that an average person can just start reading and, in one of these chat forums?
If they really want to, probably yes, but then how they know it's actually true? There's the validation of who is writing what. There could be a lot of kids and a lot of stupidity that people just make up as well.
Yeah, and keep in mind, a lot of the people on these chat forums are criminals. Criminals typically do lie, and they'll misguide people, and they're trying to gain and steal from other people. So there's not a whole lot of honesty down there. And that's in part why they have to try to rate one another. In some cases, and I've been on the dark web many times, they'll actually try to vet you. So you prove to them that you are actually a cyber criminal before they'll let you gain access to certain things. And why would they do that? Their fear is they really don't want somebody to impersonate a hacker. And that's how really the FBI tends to follow them. The FBI has hundreds, if not thousands, of aliases that are actively in the dark web trying to pretend to buy or sell things so they could befriend and learn about some of the patterns and locations and the money laundering that's happening within the world of cryptocurrency. So I always applaud what law enforcement is doing there. And that takes countless thousands of man hours to really learn how the system works. And it keeps changing. Today, this particular address that you might go on to a dark web marketplace, tomorrow it may be somewhere else. So they may share that with a small group of people.
Yeah, indeed. And as we look at it, this is something that just blew my mind. This is the current market pricing for these different services. Maybe a little bit small on the screen, but can you guys call out a couple that might catch your attention?
I see T-Mobile accounts, if I or logins, no accounts actually. There's quite a lot of interesting things here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a menu, for goodness sake.
Chinese menu, yes. There, you could pick and choose anything. And I think the interesting part, it's not just that you can buy things, you could buy a service. There is even set up customer support, free customer support, how-to videos. If you want to learn how to hack into an ATM, if you want to learn how to burn fresh credit cards that are stolen that you buy from a list, you can be a complete imbecile. You can go on the dark web and you could learn to be a cyber criminal very quickly. So it's a lot of education that's provided. And ironically, cyber criminals share information very well, very freely amongst one another. The problem with the good guys, and this has always been a problem, and it's starting to change, the private and government sectors do not always freely share information. So that's one thing that they're doing right, the world of the hackers and the cyber criminals. They're sharing information. The more the good guys share information, the better they could thwart these attacks from cyber criminals.
Indeed, and coincidentally, excuse the interruption again. I'll be back in 1 second. But apropos to that, recently we did a show with the former head of cybersecurity for the country of Israel, and one of the things that he made very clear is that the Israeli government is hand in glove with the private sector pertaining to cybersecurity right from the beginning. Evgeny, you know something about this.
Yeah, definitely. Israel has a lot of different programs to provide like free 911 for people. If somebody, even a small, medium business, have a problem, they can call people from the government to help them to at least the guide them with the next steps. This process in North America is basically handled by private companies with instant response. Insurances, in some cases, insurance, the moment you activate this, will actually mandate who will come and help you. And I wish there's going to be a bit of more clarity for the companies, what they should do and how they should do it correctly, because all the services are not cheap as well. Because the people that come and help you are high-end people. They are not people that have been on the market for 6 months or finish an educational training on Udemy. They've been in many different companies, did many different roles, from being a SOC operator to be a professional service person to being a response person and forensic person. You need to have a lot of different qualities to help companies understand what actually happened.
Yeah, that's a very astute insight, and one of the ongoing challenges and opportunities, I think, with the next generation of defenders of the digital universe, to have a pipeline of young people who are interested in science, technology, engineering, and math, and as they matriculate, through things, eventually end up with careers in cybersecurity. And but one of the interesting things that I've learned about that recently, I'd love to get your points of view on this, is I got this from NIST, that they have a group called the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education. And if I'm not mistaken, there were something along the lines of 57 distinct work roles that fall under cybersecurity. And these are things other than just, direct technical expertise. How do we attract a more diverse group of talent to this industry?
Well, I think one thing is really by providing more education. There's a lot of educational paths you can go through a traditional university. Some of that might be a little bit dated. They're starting to update universities much better, I guess, as far as the curriculum. But there's also a lot of certificates that really help you hone in on that specific area. For example, if you want to provide penetration testing or vulnerability assessments, perhaps, to a company, you could get trained, and in a sense, you're a white hat and ethical hacker, where you can try to break into a company. It's legal. You're hired by the company, so you can expose any of these vulnerabilities and weaknesses before hackers can exploit them, allowing the company then to patch these weak areas. So that's a nice area that's hot and in demand, and people don't necessarily have to get a 2 or 4 year or more degree for it. They can get focused certification, and a lot of it's more practical, hands-on keyboard, learning, trial and error, fooling around, hacking a little bit. That helps you really grasp that area or that endeavor. and certainly it's very exciting. So again, math and science skills needed. Women are certainly needed, and of course men, but there's a smaller percentage of women that are actually doing that, and women are very gifted at that and have some keen abilities, maybe even sometimes more than men. So they're trying to attract more people toward those certain niche skill sets in cybersecurity. So I think it's important people do some research and learn what area they particularly like, and try to explore it. Talk to people and get your hands on a keyboard and start trying things, and you'll probably get the bug, get excited. Next thing you'll do, you'll be helping.
It's really kind of prescient that you said that, because I just recently received my first certification. Take a look.
DevOps Gary Berman. Did you pass?
I passed. Thank you so much for all your support. Hey, well, it's funny, and Scott, I think you might know the answer to this, but Evgeny may not. So let me, for our audience, so a passing grade was 65, and a perfect score was 100. Evgeny, what do you think I got? Or did I asked you this once before?
You asked me. See, yeah, so I think I remember.
Okay, I won't put you on the spot, but I got a 65. I mean, right on the razor's edge. Which, who cares? I still passed. And the thing that was interesting about continuous learning, which Scott, you're a good example of, and why you're bringing it up, is I asked them to delve deeper into my score, and on all the human stuff of DevOps, like Agile, Chaos Monkey, all this stuff like that, I got 100. I got everyone right, and all the technical stuff, I got them all wrong, which is exactly accurate. So I'm a bit of a case study of an unusual way to help the community, and I hope an inspiration for other young people who want to do it. So as we're beginning to wrap up, Evgeny, what else would you like to share with our audience to kind of amplify, your message and what Herjavec Group is doing and things like that?
So first of all, I want to add to what Scott was saying about women in the industry. I think women have a much better attention to details than men in general. Therefore, a lot of the work can be done by them much better. Understanding a lot of logs and traffic, understanding the nuances, and find a relationship between different IPs and algorithms. So there's a lot of work that can be done better by them, and I think they're totally equal in terms between men and women in the industry, especially now when we don't need to move servers around and very heavy machinery around when majority of the stuff in the cloud. So welcome, and I hope we're going to have more and more people in cybersecurity from different genders as well. On the other side, we have a lot of vendors in the industry, and I have a podcast as well that we talk about vendors and what they do. And I think there's a lot of marketing material, and it's very hard for people to understand what actually people trying to sell to them. So be kind of careful, ask friends, watch your show. You have a lot of smart people on your show, Gary. So you definitely guys provide a lot of good feedback there as well. And one of the important parts is go back to basics. A lot of the stuff need to be covered by the basics. And you just have an amazing picture on the screen about June 17 and the micro tank show you're doing. Think tank you're doing. So I hope people registering, and if not, please register it. It should be a very interesting time. It's the first show, but not the last show you're doing. I know you're going to be doing them every month, and I wish you all the luck there.
Yeah. Thanks for mentioning that, and for being a part of the team that's helping bring it to life. We're incredibly grateful for our real life defenders of the digital universe, like you and Scott, and our great team that's meeting tomorrow morning, Wednesday at 9 a.m. So thank you very much for that. And Scott, sorry, Evgeny, how do people get to your podcast?
Oh, it's a security architecture podcast. Basically, you can put the search on LinkedIn or search on Google, you will find it. We're right now working on season 3 about application security. Very excited about it. and definitely a needed topic with SolarWinds and what happened in December as well, that I think will be very applicable to what's happening in the industry.
Incredibly interesting. And Scott, you have all these books behind you. Are you a librarian?
No, I'm not a librarian, but I have written 3 books, and part of my mission is to help simplify cyber and share, at least from my perspective, how people can stay safe, take basic precautions, best practices for themselves personally, for their small business, for their company, so they could stay safe and build a stronger cyber posture. And a lot of the stuff I focus on is it's not always just a huge spend of money. It's spending money in the right areas and using common sense to stay secure in the world of cybersecurity. And it's something that really is good for all of us to do. It's one thing when we talk about making a strong password or using multi-factor authentication, not reusing passwords, but it's another thing when we actually do it. So I always encourage people, not just here's the reasons why you should do it, but try to push them to actually start implementing some of these things and share that information with others. The more we share, the more we teach, the stronger we'll be, and it will be harder for the cyber criminals to chip away at us.
Indeed. And you're kind of inspiring me here. Why don't we have like a book club or a book something? Would you like to show one of your books to our audience? I know this part was not really planned as of yet,
sure.
but
my latest book here is Senior Cyber, and this I try to focus on a little bit different audience here for seniors, and for seniors it can be a little challenging because seniors are a little bit more vulnerable, they're a little bit more trusting, and cyber criminals are targeting them with phone scams, with email scams, trying to seduce them that they're smart and they're this and that, and at the same time they're trying to steal their money. So I try to do in this book, break it down, simple language, so people can get it and stay safe on the internet, on computers, on smartphones.
yeah, I mean, they're incredibly vulnerable, sitting ducks even, and same thing with the disabled community and teens and, everyone in their own different ways. And one of the things that I thought was incredibly intelligent on your part was to use large font. So that people, who are older can have an easier time reading that. So as I promised at the beginning of the show, you're wondering maybe, why is this 64-year-old guy dressed in a superhero costume? Well, I recently did a show on end of life, disposal of e-waste, which is a big problem or opportunity, to recycle and to do something good with it. So I actually did this.
We're going to the return area.
On top of this stuff here, that's all you gotta do.
Okay. So here we go. It's easy peasy to recycle at Best Buy. Ah. Mission accomplished.
So I'm going to put this out there. If anyone from Best Buy is listening, big fan, love to partner with you if you want to sponsor our show. And in fact, if anyone wants to sponsor our show, we sure could use it, especially according to my wife. With that wonderful note, on behalf of a grateful digital universe, special thanks to Evgenys Score at Hirschvik for doing what you do, for serving in silence, and for being a real life unsung cyber hero. The same thing to you, Scott. Thanks for all that. And both of you, whether you like it or not, are now my friends. So I really appreciate that. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Stay safe, everyone.